Hey, help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also hit that like button to subscribe if you want more Cavs-focused content. One of the unfortunate consequences of ring culture, in my opinion, is that you could have a team like the Cavs put together a incredible regular season like they have been putting together, and they don't get to be the focus of even the conversation about their team. And what I mean by that is, feels like every conversation that people want to have nationally about the Cavaliers isn't about the Cavaliers or what they've done well. It's about if the Cavaliers can be a threat to this other team. Can they be a threat to the Knicks? Can they be a threat to the Boston Celtics, right? It isn't really about the Cavs as much as it is about, are they going to be antagonists to the main character, whether it be New York or Boston, at least in the national media's eyes, right? And I think that is unfortunate. I think that a lot of people are missing out on what is a great run from the Cleveland Cavaliers, even if you're not going to appreciate it from the standpoint of being a Cavalier fan. But that being said, we know that naturally any move that the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to do will be looked at through that lens, not just nationally, but locally as well, because Boston is seen as the team that you have to get through to win the championship, right? So does Boston fear the fact that the Cavs were able to trade for DeAndre Hunter? Let's listen into their reaction, or at least NESN's reaction to the Cavs making the trade.
Traded forward DeAndre Hunter to Cleveland for Karis LeVert, your boy George Niang, and 3 second-round picks and 2 swaps.
Hey, why are you laughing, dog?
You love Niang, don't you?
Why are you laughing, dog? You know what I'm saying? Why
Ain't that your man, yo?
Why are you laughing, dog?
Every time I see his name, I think about you now.
Hey, man,
why do you dislike Niang so much? Let's start there.
We're not starting there.
Let's unpack this.
No, we're not starting there. I'm going to unpack the fact that this is a great trade for the Cleveland Cavaliers.
It is.
A team that I have been low on all season.
Yes.
And they're sitting here at, one of the best records in the league, best top of the East. And they go out and they replace a guy in Karis LeVert who's a good player,
playing
but
well,
hasn't, lived up to what they thought he could be as the third option, really scoring option, I should say,
yes.
or fourth scoring option,
yes.
I should say, for this Cavaliers team. And so they went and got.
I don't think that's a fair description of Karis LeVert. I don't think Karis LeVert didn't live up to expectation. Karis LeVert wasn't traded for when the Cavs had Donovan Mitchell, when Evan Mobley was an offensive threat. Like, that's not why the Cavs traded for Karis LeVert. The Cavs traded for Karis LeVert before they even made the Donovan Mitchell trade because they needed somebody who could dribble, pass, and shoot that wasn't Darius Garland, right? And Karis LeVert was the guy that they went after. So Karis, his role has really changed a ton from what the Cavs brought him in to be, right? Originally, he was the second option next to Darius Garland. And the Cavs were a play-in team. They weren't able to win in the play-in to secure a playoff spot in that incarnation of the Cavaliers. And then the next year, they traded for Donovan Mitchell, so Karis's role changed. And I also think, to be fair to Karis LeVert, because the Cavs have not had wings on the roster, right? We've had makeshift wings and Dean Wade and George Niang and Max Strus, and sometimes Karis LeVert. We have asked a lot of these players to play out of position, which means that we didn't get the most out of them. But that being said, Karis was always a guy who was seen as an elite bench scorer. That's what Karis has been for the Cavaliers. He's been a Sixth Man of the Year nominee, or at least in the Sixth Man of the Year conversation. Almost every year he's been a Cavalier. This year he was in the conversation, one of the highest three-point percentages in the NBA. Like, I get that. I'm excited the Cavs made this move too. And Karras was ultimately expendable because the Cavs have somebody like Ty Jerome that can score off the bench. And then possibly, Craig Porter Jr. and Jalen Tyson have been promising in their minutes they've played in lately. So it made Karras a lot easier to move. But that doesn't mean Karras has been an underwhelming player. I think Karras has been exactly what the Cavaliers traded for, which was a guy who could take some of the pressure off of the scoring load of Darius Garland. And then eventually that morphed into the guy who could score off the bench. And then eventually that morphed into a guy who could just make some spot up threes and play wing every once in a while. And I think he did as good as you could expect Karras to do given those roles. Now, the George Niang slander. Please go ahead. But no, I don't want to do that to George. George did his time in Cleveland. He was a good Cavalier. He talked some shit on the bench. Like, we had fun with George and all of that, but we all know that we wasn't trying to see George play in no damn playoffs, right? Like, that's the only thing with George, right?
A bigger, more physical.
He plays defense, too.
Killer on defense.
Yeah, dude.
And on top of that, as good of a scorer probably as Caris LeVert is, and kind of fits more of what their team needs, which is less of a playmaker and more of a, hey, I'm a catch and shoot
system.
Go get it, whatever you need me to do, plug in kind of scorer. 1-2 dribble pull up kind of guy, go to the rim, finish at the rim kind of guy.
Great
I
fit.
love this fit for the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I think a lot of people aren't paying attention to it. This is a sneaky one. This is one where in my brain it turns off from hey, maybe they could lose to the Celtics in 5, which I still believe, especially after watching that game on Tuesday, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But I think this Cleveland Cavaliers team can go from a losing 5 to the Celtics type of team to maybe this does go to 7, and maybe they could beat the Celtics. We'll see.
What about the Hawks?
Man, the Celtics are like you know what the Celtics fans do? They win one championship and act like they're the freaking Warriors. Right? Like, they get that one championship. And they did the same thing when KG won that one title, right? KG, Paul Pierce, the big three. They won that one title, and you would have swore they three-peated the way they talk about it. Like, the way that Celtics fans act, and this is some disrespect to Celtics fans because this is a behavior I'm calling out. But the way Celtics fans act after they win a championship, it's like they're automatically this unstoppable dynasty. And if you're the Cavs, you're lucky to take us to 7 because we're the goddamn Boston Celtics. We're so good. And it's like, dog, like y'all got the one ring. Like, teams win one ring and get out the way all the time. Why are we acting like the Boston Celtics have been this kind of dynasty that's been dominating the Eastern Conference? Like, this is a Boston Celtics team that as recently as 2022-2023 lost to a one-man Jimmy Butler Heat. I believe they were like a 7 seed, too. The Heat, when they beat the Boston Celtics. I think they came really close the year prior to losing to the Miami Heat again. Like, the Boston Celtics have been to 2 NBA Finals since 2021, and you got to give them respect for that. But this is not the KD Warriors looming over the Western Conference. This is not LeBron James in his prime dominating the Eastern Conference for like a decade. This is not that, but the way that Boston fans talk about it, you would swear that they have been that dominant. You would swear that the Boston Celtics have been going to the NBA Finals since 2014, the way they talk. Like, it's incredible how cocky Boston fans get after winning one championship. They get incredibly cocky. Yeah, they spend the last part of this video talking about Trae Young if he's going to request a trade from the Atlanta Hawks. But again, the arrogance of Boston sports fans who feel like they're this invulnerable right now, like they're just this dominant. I don't know, man. Am I tripping? Has Boston been looming over the league the last 5-6 years the way that other dominant dynasties have been able to loom over the league, or dominant players have been able to loom over the league? Again, man, the way they talk, you would think that they're like the KD Warriors, and they're a great team. Don't get me wrong. Boston not going to be an easy team to beat in the playoffs, but people talk about it as if it's David versus Goliath for any team that goes up against Boston. And brother, they got beat by David like 2 times already. They got beat by Jimmy Butler and friends a year ago, and they got beat by the last remains of the Golden State Warriors dynasty the year prior to that. This is not a dynasty in the Boston Celtics, the way that people have framed it. And I'm tired of people framing it that way. I hope the Cavs can beat them just so we don't have to hear this garbage anymore. But is what it is, right? As far as DeAndre Hunter goes, I think the one underestimated thing about DeAndre Hunter that he brings to the table is strength, right? Because outside of Jared Allen and Donovan Mitchell, the Cavs aren't a very strong or physical team. And DeAndre Hunter gives you a lot of physicality in whatever lineup you want to toss him in, right? And I don't think you lack physicality in lineups with like Jared Allen in there, because Jared Allen, I think, quiet but loudly had Jared Allen, while nobody's talked about it as much as I would like, has loudly added to his physicality repertoire. I think he's been much better in that aspect of his game. So I don't really have worries there, right? I saw him basically try to bully Rudy Gobert. I've seen him go head-to-head with Kristaps Porzingis. Like, the stuff that bugged you about physicality of Jared Allen, he has clearly addressed over the last 2 years, and I have less concern about that going forward with him, as long as he can stay healthy. Now, with Evan Mobley, while he's gotten bigger, while he's lifted more weights, he still has a ways to go before he can really be physical enough to move guys the way that he wants to move them. Once he gets to that weight, he'll be fine. The mentality is there. But when you have Evan out there, I do think it would be helpful to have somebody like DeAndre Hunter out there to add a physical presence to the front court, while also having somebody like Donovan Mitchell there, so you can have Evan Mobley feel free to kind of roam around that perimeter, so he can stay out these zone defensive lineups. I think that helps you a lot there. Having Dean Wade as an extra piece that you can move if he can stay healthy is another important thing for this Cavs team. I think he's a chess piece that unlocks a lot of different things that the Cavs can do lineup-wise to match up with other teams, and I think DeAndre Hunter is going to be very important. But we'll see what that means for the Boston Celtics, if this means that the Cavs are going to interrupt this great Boston Celtics dynasty that I've been unaware of. Y'all let me know in the comment section down below. Have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.